What's up, guys? This is Manny from Motomillion, and welcome to the first episode of 2Wheel Convos. This is where we'll be going out for a ride to have relevant conversations about bikes, guys. And we'll also be hitting up a location in Miami so that I could get you guys to show the beautiful Miami that we're headquartered in. And today we are on the Motomillion M1000RR because I think it's very fitting to the conversation we're about to have. And if you're watching our M1000RR series, you guys would have seen that we changed our brakes. We did the complete Brembo caliper conversion on this bike. And furthermore, since the last time I rode this bike, we have changed the quick shifter to the Alpha Racing quick shifter. We changed our silicone hoses, which is our coolant hoses. We did our 520 conversion kit, and there's a lot more stuff coming out. We did also change our brake master cylinder. This thing feels amazing. And also this quick throttle from Alpha Racing. We did change our grips too, guys. These are the new grips that we have on this bike. And if you guys are a BMW owner or an S1000RR, M1000RR owner, you would know that changing grips is something very unusual. Something very simple, but very unusual for some bikes like the BMW S1000RR and M1000RR. If you want to see why, go check out our video where we did change the grips on this bike. But I want to get into the conversation of BMW because the big news is, and a lot of people have not heard this, the big news is there's a new stop sale. And the stop sale is voluntary this time. It's not mandatory by the NHTSA, which is the National Highway Traffic Safety Association. And I say again because BMW did have a history of stop sales for the K66 and K67 BMW models and some of the other models that are out there. But this stop sale covers all internal combustion engine BMW motorcycles. So right now, if you go to your dealership, the only BMW that you could buy is the CE4, I believe, their electric bike. And it's not really confirmed what the stop sale is about. It was a voluntary one because I think they were looking at some hefty fines from the government. And I'm filming this right now at the final week of September 2023. And this stop sale was put into effect last week. And from what we hear, it's the EVAP system. And I'm going to be honest, guys, with some of the newer BMWs that we received, that we had been doing some work with, we realized that the EVAP hoses were not connected. And I think, I'm not sure, and there's no confirmation, this stop sale might be caused by that. And to tie it into this beautiful bike that we're riding and the Brembo brakes that we put on this bike, the last stop sale was caused by BMW's own fault and their cost cuttings. And it actually was mandated by the government, by the NHTSA, because there were quite a few BMW models that were leaking brake fluid through their calipers, which unfortunately has caused some crashes, which has led to injuries. And I heard in 3 instances, unfortunately, there were 3 deaths involved, and that's when the government got involved. But you guys are probably wondering, BMW is a big brand, and how can stuff like this happen? It's very unfortunate because BMW has gone through the cost-cutting measures where most manufacturers go through to either increase their profit margins or to keep more profit in their pockets. And that's when they decided no longer to use Brembo as a brake supplier and continue on looking for other manufacturers. At the time, the calipers were made by a company called Hayes, which where all the faulty calipers came from. And then they still didn't go back to Brembo after all this, and they did go through with Nissan, which is a very reputable Japanese manufacturer. But to be honest, the only bike that I could think of that has Nissan brakes right now is the R1 and the R1M, which again, that's the weak point of those bikes, is their Nissan calipers. In terms of performance, right? Don't forget, we're not talking about riding like this. I'm sure most of those brakes are okay on it, but once you get into spirited riding or maybe push the boundaries of these motorcycles, that's when you realize that these brakes that are supplied on some of those bikes are not the most, well, they're not the best choice that you would do if you're trying to build something top of the line. And let's talk about this thing. This is a 2023 M1000RR. I definitely would have expected to see some all-in suspension and Brembo brakes on this bike, given the price range. This bike is very close to $40,000 before your taxes and fees. And that's why we did change to the Brembo brakes, because it is the, it is the top of the line manufacturer for brakes, and we did go with the top of the line street setup on this thing, and the brakes feel fantastic, guys. And in this ride, you guys are going to see me once I find some open road. I am going to bed in the brakes. What does that mean? Bedding in the brakes is you introduce the new brake compound, because it has new pads that come along with this caliper, to your brake rotor, so that it's more effective and more efficient when it's braking. So it actually grabs better, and there's a big difference. Whenever you put new brakes on any vehicle, be it your car or motorcycle, even if it's when it's brand new, I highly recommend doing that, because it does really, really improve your braking performance. And it's something so simple. Usually, when you get pads from manufacturers, sometimes they do come with some sort of a warning or in informational pamphlet that says bed in your brakes. But for some reason, it's always overlooked, and a lot of people don't talk about it. Right now, we're entering into, I think we already did enter, but this is North Miami Beach, guys. I love this city because look at it. We went from a cityscape view to a beach town, basically, which this is. And this is the city of North Miami Beach. And we'll be crossing over to South Miami Beach, which is often referred to as South Beach. And then we'll cross over back to Miami, where I'll take you to the district of the arts, as we call it, which is called Wynwood, where the location that we're going is. It's a place called Walt Grace Vintage, where they have some very cool vintage guitars and vintage cars. Vintage guitars I don't know much about, but maybe we'll grab someone from Walt Grace to explain some things that are cool to us. But there's also very cool vintage cars, which are always great to look at, even if you're not a car guy. I think it translates over from bikes. If you love bikes, I'm sure you could appreciate a very nice car or two. And let me tell you this, the last upgrades that we made, so I was kind of scared that our throttle here, which is 65 degrees instead of 80 degrees turn, this is a quick throttle, was going to be too touchy, but it actually is not. It is very rideable around town, and it's not very, very sensitive to the throttle input. And I love these TWM levers, including the lever blade that's on the right-hand side where we changed it on our Brembo master cylinder, because the ergonomics of the bike, this is so familiar to me, because almost everything that we build has these levers, or at least gets the lever blades for the ergonomics aspect of it. And these lever blades are also used in MotoGP, which is kind of cool. They have the low drags on them. But I think that one of the biggest changes that I just noticed is the quick shifter by Alpha Racing is such a noticeable upgrade, guys. It makes that the BMW has a very good quick shifter from the factory. I think it is the best quick shifter in its segment, but it has a little bit of a slop still, and this really takes care of that with this Heim joints and the grips. Man, it changes the bike completely. We did go with the medium stiffness, or the medium compound grips, which are the Pro Grip 717s. And if you watched our video where I took this bike for its first ride, I was complaining a little bit of the buzziness of the bike. And I'm very happy to say that it's not buzzy at all anymore, guys. The handlebars do not buzz. It's very nice. I'm starting to like this thing, guys. Especially for you guys who blame me for being a Ducati fanboy. No, I love everything, guys, and this bike right now, as it is, I'm really enjoying this ride, really enjoying this bike, and kind of enjoying this ride because we hit our Miami traffic here with Miami Beach's finest right in front of us. Luckily, let me not jinx myself, but they're very lenient, guys. It's I hear some horror stories of the law enforcement in other cities and other parts of the country, but they're very, very nice. They do not bug you one bit. And I always say hi to them. I don't know why, because I appreciate their service just because they're not giving us a hard time here. And mind you, we are riding a very beautiful bike, and I'm completely geared up, which I think they do appreciate as well, because it kind of tells them what kind of a rider you are. Well, at least in my case, I don't do any crazy things, if you guys haven't noticed. Going back to the quick shifter, it's even just fun just shifting up and down on this bike, just because it works so well. And what you guys can expect us with this M1000RR is we have more upgrades coming. As I said, we did change our brakes to the BMW Brakes, which I really think this bike should have came in from the factory. And we have all-in suspension. This is all going to go away. This Marzocchi or Marzocchi, I don't know how you want to pronounce it. I call it Marzocchi. I think that's the correct pronunciation. But we're getting rid of the suspension. We have our all-in suspension coming up. We already have it, but we have to send it off to England to our good buddy Matthew from Emesco. And if you're watching, hats off to you. He's a mastermind behind our caliper bracket that we use on this bike. And he's going to be doing some very cool things for us. He's got his own machine shop that has some very, very high-end CNC machines. And he himself has worked with some very big names in the industry, with some World Superbike teams, and with even a very big name, which is Peter Hickman, who races in the Isle of Man TT, guys. There was a race team called Peter Hickman Racing. They do race the BMW M1000RR in that series. And also, one complaint that I had, now that we get going a little bit, was the heat from this M1000RR. This bike no longer gets hot, guys. It was very unbearably hot. Mind you, today's a cooler day. I don't know if you can read it there. Our IAT sensor is reading at 87 degrees, which is very close to the ambient temperature of today. And we're about to hit, I think we're just 3 weeks away from our dry season that starts in Miami, where the weather is the best weather all across the country, where we don't get a lot of rain and the humidity comes down quite a bit, and it's just wonderful. So you guys can expect a lot more riding to do. I want to pick up some speed too. This is what you do with bedding in the brakes. There's no one behind me, so I could confidently do this. Just speed up a little. Don't come to a complete stop, but just work those pads into those rotors. And you'll see, you'll notice as you do it, the brake bite gets better and better, and it stays at that better point. But already the brakes feel a lot more powerful. As a street rider, you know, I don't know if it's, I'm not going to come and tell you guys it's a world of difference, or tell you guys that this thing stops in a dime, because I don't think that's an honest opinion. Because I think where these calipers would really shine is complete stress testing them on a racetrack, which again, I'm not a pro rider, so I'm not going to get into trying to give you guys advice. But over the stock brakes, the stock calipers in the master cylinder, I can tell you there is a definite difference in the power that translates from the motion of your finger of pressing that lever to what the bike gives you. And that's very confidence inspiring. That's what you want on a racetrack setting for sure, and that's what you want on the street, because you want to make sure that when you hit the brake, you're getting a direct feedback. And I could tell you that there's 100% a difference that I feel. Even though I haven't had a long journey with this bike so far, I've only put somewhat of a 300 miles, but I've been around the S1000RR platform, the K67s, for long enough to know the difference that I feel. We could do the same thing with the rear brakes too, to bed in the rear pad. But don't forget, with these modern super bikes, when you apply the front brakes, it does actually apply the rear brakes too. And this is a part of Miami that I love riding, because you have the intercoastal on your right, the ocean on your left, and all these historic hotels. And one of these hotels here is called the Eden Rock. Even Elvis at the time of his life had stayed in that hotel, which is very cool. And I believe this is a hotel called Fontainebleau. And now we're going to cross over the Julia Tuttle Causeway over to City of Miami, so that we could go to Wynwood to visit Walt Grace. And also, I think being a car guy or a bike guy, I enjoy everything with engines. Even yachts, boats, they're very cool to see, and I love their shapes. And that's one of the nice things about living in Miami, because you can see everything. There's so much money in this city, guys. It's kind of a good thing and kind of a bad thing, because cost of living is very high, but you get to see so many special things that they kind of lose their specialness almost. For example, a Rolls Royce Cullinan, which is a $500,000-$600,000 SUV, they're everywhere. And this is the iconic 41st Street, which is 41st Street of Miami Beach. When you cross over, it becomes 36th Street of Miami. But this is a very old neighborhood, predominantly Jewish neighborhood of Miami. And for you guys, excuse me for doing this, because I do not like to sit at the back of the traffic, guys, at the lights. I've seen and heard a lot of stories of people getting rear-ended. I'd rather do this, be safe, and if I ever get pulled over for it, I have a good explanation for it, and usually officers do not mind the explanation, and they do appreciate when you are very nice with them. As a matter of fact, unfortunately, a police officer that was riding a motorcycle, the police motorcyclist, got hit not too far off. I think it was a couple of years back, and he lost his life because he was rear-ended just sitting at the lights. And that's also one of the other unfortunate side of living in Miami is it is a party city. There's a lot of tourists who are not used to the street lights and the roads, and they're not paying attention, or unfortunately they're intoxicated from their partying. And it is rather a place that you really have to be careful and watch out for the cars when you're riding. Man, the brakes and the throttle, I think it really transformed this bike. Something as simple as the grips too. I think the grips made the biggest change, because my biggest complaint was the fact that the handlebars buzzed so much that it's, I don't know. I'm going to say it felt like being on a lawnmower that's off balance or something, that it's just annoying, you know? But when you're holding it, it's buzzing so much that your palms are getting tingly, and it wasn't cool. But now, there you go. They kind of fixed it, which is, I expected it to make it better, but I think it's completely gone away now. And furthermore, we're even running our full 6 clutch lever guard, which is on a lighter ball end than the factory piece that we took off of this bike. So that's kind of something that might introduce more buzziness to the handlebar, but buzziness is completely gone. And we are going to take this bike to the dyno, guys, because we have a few other things to do. We're just waiting on our OZ Racing forged magnesium wheels, which is not available for sale unless you're a race team. And thanks to our good buddies, they were able to make an exception and get us a few sets, and I'm excited to see it. Ooh, feels good to get some wind, because it is kind of warm. We do have a low fuel light, but we got more than enough range. It's kind of something cool about the BMW is you could actually see how much fuel is in your fuel tank, unlike the Ducatis. There's no fuel gauge. And here we're at 50-60 miles an hour. The buzziness is very, very slight, nothing like it was. This bike hasn't been ridden for a little bit, so, but look at this view, guys. Where else do you get a view like this right in the middle of the city? We are literally riding a motorcycle on top of the ocean, because this causeway here, I believe this was all filled land, where we have ocean on our both sides, which is the Biscayne Bay. Let's go down a few gears, give it a little squirt of throttle. Obviously that's not full throttle, but trying to stay a safe distance between both vehicles in front. Well, it feels cool. It's got vocals now. Now that we have our Aero header and mid-pipe on this bike using the stock muffler, and we are going to be changing the muffler. And if you want to see any special muffler on it, let us know. We'll be more than happy to entertain the ideas. And now we've crossed into mainland Miami. I will show you guys around a little bit. And speaking of the beautiful cars of Miami, look at that. It's a McLaren, just at the lights, and a Bentley Bentayga. crossing the street on the other side. Very cool. Not black. Doesn't even have a license plate. That's how lenient they are. It's a 720S. I know because it says 720S on the side, because all the McLarens look alike. I don't know. They just look like one another. They're cool, but they have reliability issues. Speaking of reliability, I don't know about you guys, but you guys always like to complain and bust my balls about the reliability of Ducatis, especially since we had an oil leak that we fixed on our SP2, which is now confirmed fixed. It's not very Ducati, modern Ducati, for them to have any issues, but I think BMWs actually have more issues and more stop sales over the years, more recalls. And I'm waiting for that letter in the mail about the recall of this motorcycle, because I believe after all that EVAP stuff is solved, we are going to get a recall for all of these bikes, for all BMWs. I believe all 2023 and 2024 model years will have a recall where I think they're going to have to check the emission systems on the bikes. Should we give it a couple revs under the bridge? Just one rev enough. And speaking of exotic cars, I believe this is a Z06, guys. Wow, quite an introduction to Miami with all these cool cars around. Very, very cool car. It is the new flat plane crank GM. That's a cool car. I want to give him a thumbs up. Very cool. No, this one. He asked me, look, it's got carbon wheels, guys. That's so cool. He asked me if I would take that one or the car behind. I'd definitely take the Z06. And in the past few years, American cars have come a long way, guys. And if you didn't know, I'm a big car guy. As much as I'm a bike guy, I did even race cars for quite a bit of my life. And these new American cars are fantastic. And this is the Midtown area of Miami. This is one of the newer neighborhoods that became what it is today. Because when I first came to Miami, which was about 12, 13 years ago, there was only this building here. None of these buildings over there existed. And it's just amazing how much Miami's grown over the years. And this is what I mean, guys, a lot of buildings. None of these buildings existed here even 5 years ago. This is Wynwood, and you'll see there's a lot of graffiti, which is encouraged. And there's a lot of famous artists that come here to Miami every year and paint all of the buildings and warehouses that are around here. It's very cool if you just want to ride through and check the graffiti and come grab a coffee, walk the streets. There's often events going on. Very, very young crowd. Very energetic. And the nightlife here is very different. It's more down to earth than the other parts of Miami where, you know, I don't know, they don't try to sell you $10,000 evenings for going out to a club or a bar. But as I said, none of these buildings existed here, and there's a mural of Messi. And here's some of the older buildings. Walt Grace actually used to be in this building back in the day. And if you're from Miami, I don't know if you've ever been, but you would recognize that building. And this is the famous Wynwood Walls. This actually used to be a free exhibition where there's a lot of cool graffiti and stuff inside, but now I think you have to pay to get in. And there's actually a famous artist who has an art gallery in there. And there's Walt Grace Vintage, guys. There's already a motorcycle in front of it, which looks like a Harley V-Rod, if I'm not mistaken, or some Yamaha. I can't tell from here. Excuse me for not getting it right if I didn't get it right. Oh, it's actually an Indian. And look at this Aston Martin. Beautiful car. Looks like a sneaker with that color scheme. Let me take you guys inside and show you guys around real quick. So guys, welcome to Walt Grace Vintage. They do, as I mentioned, have vintage cars and vintage guitars and amps. And also they do have a coffee shop too. And just a disclaimer, look at what they say. They say, children left unattended will be towed at owner's expense. I think probably parents' expense, let's call it. We don't own kids anymore these days. Those days are gone. But all jokes aside, look at this place. This is just amazing. You don't have to be a car guy to appreciate what they have here, but this is so Miami. This place didn't used to exist at this location. It's moved around twice already in the neighborhood called Wynwood. And to me, this is one of the staple places of Wynwood, the neighborhood. And look, they even have motorcycles. And I'm a motorcycle nerd. I told you guys, I like every bike. I'm not just a Ducati fanboy, as some of you guys call it. This is a CVO breakout. This is, I guess, a custom model that they have here. And I believe everything that you see is for sale. They even have some artwork that's really cool. This, I don't know, you don't have to be a Harley guy to even appreciate this thing that's here. This is some vintage Jaguar. It's an XK120. And if you come behind, there's some more exotic stuff like this F355 Spider. They got a 430. I'm gonna say it's just a 430 Berlinetta, but hey, to some of us, maybe it's not just a 430. And as you walk around, obviously nowadays with the car culture, there's a lot of Porsches. And if you guys didn't know, South Florida is actually the largest market for Porsche worldwide. There's a huge cult following for Porsches, and you see it everywhere you go in Miami that has to do something with cars, because I bet you any cool spot like this will have a Porsche or two. In this case, 4 or 5 Porsches in here already. This is a GT3, so these are kind of like their track spec model, so let's call this an SP2, and then they have the GT3 RS, which we will call a V4R. And I don't know, just look at this place, look at the guitars. I'll show you some of the guitars. I'm not a music aficionado to be able to tell you all about it, but they did show us some cool stuff, which I'll show you. And look at this thing. This is a Confederate motorcycle. This is a complete custom bike. And it's really cool. It has a completely CNC machine frame. I don't know what kind of engine it's running, but it said it says it's a Jim's. I don't know. I thought it would be an SNS engine on there. It has a carbon frame here too, which I think it houses oil because it has an oil cap on it. It's very cool. It's single-sided swing arm. So I bet you that's a swing arm off a 1098 that's been customized to fit that frame. And even further back, look at this. There's a 993 turbo here. And if you're a car guy and if you're a Porsche guy, this is like the holy grail of things, the last
air-cooled
911 turbo. They did go up in value like crazy. Something like this, look at this thing. It's just an engine on a stand. I don't know what it's obviously a Porsche engine, but I don't know exactly what it is. It says it's a 911 SC 2.7, but they have really cool stuff. And they even have a repair shop for guitar and amps. So if you're into guitars and amps and looking to get it repaired, they even have that. And for you guys watching that love guitars, here's something really cool, something that I could even appreciate because I know who Carlos Santana is. That's Carlos Santana's guitar right up there. And to the left of it, there is Yngwie Malmsteen's 2 guitars. I didn't know who he was, but they told me that he's regarded as the best guitar player to have ever lived. Those are his actual guitars that are up there. And all of this stuff is for sale. So if you are into spending money and want to get something like this is the place to get it. And they have a website that I think they showcase a lot of their products as well. Again, I'm not a person who would really appreciate these things to their true sense of them, but even just the visual that you have here when you walk in, this is so different and it's so cool because I think they're true, other than they're used to make art, what we call music, they are true works of art. You could appreciate the visuals of even of a guitar, of how beautiful they are and how they're crafted. And they even have some choppers, which I think this is very old school American culture. Now I'm gonna call it old school because I don't know if this is still a thing. Some of these old choppers that are around. Apparently this is a 2005 Bourget custom motorcycle. This is what you used to watch when I was much younger. I used to see these things on TV, right? Orange County Choppers and Jesse James. They used to make all these crazy bikes. And this is a little small room they have. I guess it has the Martin guitars. And again, I don't know nothing about them, but they did mention that this guitar here is from 1890s, which is crazy. Imagine this, and it's not been restored. It's just been very well kept. And I did ask right away, how much does something like that cost? So this thing is 10 grand. And this thing behind here, it's not as old, but apparently it's a more special model. This thing is around $19,000. And I don't know, out of curiosity, for me the price doesn't matter. I think the story is what matters, and just the fact that this is from 1890s and it's so well preserved, and it's just actually just casually sitting here for you and me to be able to just walk in here and to see it. And even though, again, I may not appreciate it to its true sense, for me to come and see this is pretty cool, because it's just something very different and unusual that you would rather see. And they even have some merch. As you can tell, I did trade my sweaty shirt for a brand new non-sweaty shirt, because I think you guys have had enough of Sweaty Manny from our old videos. But they do have some merch as well. So if you're visiting Miami and you want to take a little piece of Miami, a little piece of Walt Grace Vintage home with you. So guys, that was a little glimpse of a gem that we have in Miami, and we do have a lot more places to go and show you guys. You can be sure that we're going to be following up with more episodes of 2Wheel Convos, where we talk about relevant things in the motorcycling world and relevant things with Motomillion, but also I'll take you on a ride to take you to places like this, which I call the gems of Miami. And I hope you like the new format. Let us know in the comments below what you think, if you've enjoyed this, or even if you want us to grab one of the staff members of Walt Grace to show you guys a more in-depth tour of Walt Grace. And if there's even any place that you know of, you've been to, you've heard of in Miami, let us know. We could try to make that happen. But if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Until next time, guys, have a good one.